I normally think that the criticism of Sanderson's humor and prose are overblown, but it's a bit shocking how much Wind and Truth felt like a step back in terms of quality on both of these fronts, especially compared to Cosmere's Secret Project, which I really loved. There are handfuls of jokes and contemporary turns of phrases that completely took me out of the story due to how unfunny or how out of place those really are. His exposition in the first half also felt very clunky, which is weird because I usually don't take any issue with Sanderson's info dump that much, and they can be very fun. His handling of mental issues, especially the Stormlight strength, was incredibly heavy-handed and was felt very 101 level at best. This book felt very outlined and workshopped to death. You can tell there was a plan for each characters and storyline, and he just wrote it to the plan in a very mechanical way. At the same time, there were no retcons that don't feel like they planned all along, and the world building makes more sense now than it did ever before, which is a benefit of writing to a predetermined structure. By workshopped, I am referring to the prevalent therapy speak and handling of mental health. Sanderson's heart is in the right place, but all the characters talk and think like a guide on how to process trauma. I hate the idea of political correctness because we should all want to be politically correct. But there's something stifling in the way the book repeatedly handles difficult issues exactly the way online mental health activists would recommend. It feels like a TJ Klune or Becky Chambers in that way. Last few Sanderson books all share the same drawbacks, stemming from one source: editing. Since Oathbringer, he changed his editor and is now basically an unbrindle. He can write pretty much however he pleases without any restraint or editing, as he also got his own printing services, which shackles his other editors. Secret novels were self-contained, and they would have been printed by a serious editor if they were the first book of an unknown author. So he's an unbounded author now, spiraling and writing whatever he wants with no matter the quality. For Wind and Truth, Brandon Sanderson did one less draft than the other Stormlight books, and it can be glaringly obvious. His prose are much worse than the Stormlight books, especially the first two. We got dialogues like "you go to it, I'm game," which immediately breaks all the immersions. His jokes and romance are also at the lowest he has ever written. His characters don't feel like a real human character, more like a sum of features pasted together. They have become monotonous, one-sided vague figures spouting forced dialogues. Overall, this book desperately needs some editing and more time to be much more polished and refined. Sanderson hates his draft, and he is now unbounded, and he forces himself to an impossible writing schedule. While I am happy that we don't have George R. Martin syndrome, but he really should take much more time in editing and rewriting process. Every time I reread Cosmere book, the writing, the weakness in Sanderson's writing becomes much more apparent, and his strength, namely his world building and plotting, diminishes because I already know them. I forced myself into these last few books because I wanted to see the conclusion of the first half of Stormlight Archive. I do want to know what's going to happen in the second arc of Stormlight and in the wider Cosmere. However, at the moment, I never want to touch another Sanderson book. It's just exhausting. I'm taking a break for a couple of years. Probably won't even read the new secret project next year, although I backed it. At the moment, I feel like waiting until Stormlight 10 is published, then maybe getting back to it. I'll probably end up waiting until Mistborn Era 3 is fully released and read all the new Cosmere books before now and then, and not rereading anything. Don't get me wrong, I do like the Cosmere universe, but a year ago I would have said I adored it, but I can't in good conscience say it right now. It's not my favorite series anymore after some of the subpar books that Sanderson released in last few years. Really feels like Sanderson is at its most contrived. I think we have truly hit the who cares, just another Marvel movie at this point of Cosmere, where even if we get anything new, I don't think Sanderson can do anything to make me care about it. Like, he can't surprise me anymore, I feel like. I've seen all his tricks, cliches, everything. I don't think he has the chops to really surprise me anymore. Like, if Calculon written a fantasy book, like some of the passages are so cringy, like storms that hurts. Like give me a break. When every single character in their own isolated final act of a soap opera, you might as well have one character if they are all gonna give us the exact same thing. One of my biggest personal disappointment with Sanderson is that despite enjoying the stories he tells, oftentimes about learning things and places in this world, particularly Rocher, usually makes them less interesting, not more. Going to Sadesmar make it less interesting because it revealed that it wasn't really an alien as implied. Learning about the past in windandtruth was a disappointment in my opinion, and made the mysteries that have shrouded much of the TSA feels worse in retrospect. This is less true in Mistborn Era 1. I think learning about Kandra and Himalurgy was good, but it results from Sanderson's ability to write depth. A big exception is that of Unmade. It started off thinking like they would suck, but now they are some of my favorite parts of the series. They are some of the truly alien and weird things that Sanderson has written about, and I loved it. Honestly, I feel that without a change in Sanderson's prose, he's not going to reach the height he could as an author. I despise reading any of the sections where Cal was interacting with Seth, not based off what they are doing. To be honest, that was awesome, but really because of the constant modern thoughts on therapy. It just does not fit. The world that Sanderson has built is cheapened by his weakness as a writer. Genuinely think he's going to be my go-to fantasy slop bucket author list without any significant improvement. And this isn't coming from a hater. I read just about every Cosmere book. It is coming from a place of frustration from genuine fan who is becoming disillusioned. 2 out of 5 only weaker books for me in Stormlight is Rhythm of War. I think I used to feel like Stormlight Archive was probably in my top 10, but after last few books he released, I don't think it's anywhere close to being in top 20 in my opinion. I hope Sanderson took a big break from this series. I heard that he is going to release the next book in 2031. I think that's a good thing, and I hope that he genuinely improves in the next 6 years. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching.